Right.
And if it passes, you know, hopefully we can move forward and
Right.
remodel the courthouse.
Right.
You know,
Right. So just a couple of things to comment on there, Jason, would be obviously the proposition is going to be submitted to the voters at the general election this November. Takes a majority to pass, right? 50 plus 1. So you got to have a majority to pass it. If it passes, oftentimes the question I get is, well, how soon will this tax be implemented? And when will we start seeing money flow into us from the implementation of this sales tax? And the answer is, the Department of Revenue gives you a filing deadline of May 1st, 2017. So if it passes in November of 2016, you have until May 1st, 2017 to file the proper proceedings with the Department of Revenue to prove that it was a successful sales tax initiative.
So in other words, the election has to be certified.
That is correct.
How long does that take?
2 weeks.
Right, 2 weeks, and then you've got the no contest period, I think, of 30 days or so. And so, realistically, by the end of December, middle of January, we could theoretically have the election process wrapped up and the results canvassed and certified. And then we send those results to the Department of Revenue. As long as it's file stamped and received by the Department of Revenue by May 1, 2017, the tax will be imposed starting July 1, 2017.
60 days.
Right. Right. So, if it is a successful referendum, there's no reason why it could not be imposed starting July 1, 2017, unless you guys collectively say, no, let's hold off and we'll wait and we'll let it start January of 18, right? We'll let that filing deadline come and go of May 1. So if it's successful, again, the soonest it can be imposed would be July 1 of 2017.
Why would that be the soonest?
Because that's the Department of Revenue, is what they say.
So they work on a 6 month.
They're working, right, they're fiscal, right,
6 months or quarters.
right.
Six.
6 months, 6 months, right. It's either going to start
July 1st.
July 1 or January 1st, right. And so the filing deadline for a January 1 has already filed. It will come and go in October, right, long before we even vote the question. Okay, so the soonest it can be imposed would be July 1, 2017. You'll probably start seeing money flow in a couple months after that. You know, the Department of Revenue can give you the flow of funds better than I can, but the tax is collected, you know, during the month of July. It gets paid to the Department of Revenue. They process it, and then they'll end up dispersing it out probably in November-ish, right, is when you'll see it. And you guys are familiar with that. I mean, you guys get collections from them. And then it starts flowing monthly. So you get the first one in maybe November-ish, and then every month you're going to get a check or wire from the Department of Revenue with that information on it, or with that information. So from a timing standpoint, again, that's, I think, something that's worth mentioning. Could essentially be in place July 1, 2017. Now, just because the tax is getting the referendum approved is obviously step number 1, right? You got to get the referendum approved. Step number 2 is getting the tax imposed, filing things with the Department of Revenue so the tax is imposed. And then, at that point, you'll begin conversations, or maybe you'll begin these conversations sooner, but you'll begin conversations about, all right, now, when do we want to borrow the money? When do we want to borrow the money and use those proceeds to make the improvements to the county facility or facilities? And that's up to you guys. You could wait a year, you could wait 2 years, 3 years. It's really whenever you guys decide you want to move forward and borrow the money and use those dollars for your projects. There will be various legal proceedings. There will be various legal proceedings and steps involved at that time for how to borrow the money and what process and steps you have to go through. We can cross that bridge when we get to it. We don't make up those rules. It's right out of the county's code. County's code says if you want to borrow money and you want to use it for A, B, and C, here are 2 different ways you can do that, and we'll be here to help you with that process. But there will be various legal proceedings that you have to go through, no different than what you just did to put the question on the ballot. There'll be resolutions that have to be prepared and maybe a public hearing, and there's various things that we'll need to check off the to-do list. But again, we can cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay, the most important thing is just getting it passed and then having it implemented. Now, before, and maybe we talked about this some, before you can proceed with a bond issue for any amount, really, for public facility improvements, a feasibility report will need to be conducted on the 1% sales tax. So it will demonstrate or project how much money annually can be utilized for a bond payment. So a feasibility report, and the reason why that's necessary is there's no history of this being collected that's reflected in your audit, right? So if you said July 1, 2017 or August 1 of 2017, we want to proceed with a bond issue, we can't look back at an audit and say they've actually have a history of collecting this revenue stream. There's no history. So that means that you have to bring in a third-party feasibility analyst and have them look at sales data within the county, and then they can project out down the road how much this sales tax will approximately generate, and then we take that information and we use that to determine then, okay, of this dollar amount that's coming in, how much do you want to use and leverage as an annual bond payment. So again, there's several steps and things that have to happen between now and then. Guys have any questions so far?
As a general rule, what if a county was going to do a bond, what percentage of that revenue do they pick? 70, 80, 90,
80.
100?
80. Yep, 80. I would tell you that's a good, I would not say 100.
I know.
Okay, right, I would not say 100.
It'd be foolish to.
Right, right. I would say 80, 70 to 80, I think is a good, reasonable number. Okay, and why 80? Well, because we know that one year it might be 600,000, the next year it might be 590. Right, in terms of the revenue coming in at sales tax, right? It's going to go up and going to go down. It's going to fluctuate. It's going to go up and down. So I'm just pulling that number out of the air. But if you've got, $700,000 coming in, you obviously don't want to pledge 700,000. You want to pledge something less than that, 70% or 80%, to allow for a little bit of fluctuation. Some bond types, right? Some of the borrowing alternatives that the county can move forward with may in fact require that there is sufficient coverage. So in other words, that hey, for every dollar that we have going out in debt annually, we need to make sure that we've got $1.25 coming in revenue. So there is a coverage factor that we may have to be aware of, which is always why they typically do 70 or 80% to meet that statutory requirement of showing that if we've got $1 going out, we need to show that the revenue is sufficient to generate at least $1.25 coming in. What other questions?
In the past, you've already kind of ran a number, like what our payment would be.
Right.
Looks sufficient.
Yep.
In the past. I don't know if you want to discuss that today, or
Yep.
we'd have to look at it.
Nope, I'm happy to discuss that today. Right, we talked about that back in November. We had passed out information to show various scenarios, but first of all, I do want to pass some of this. Let me just get rid of some of the stuff in here that I prepared for you guys. This I didn't have anything to do with this. This is just a copying right out of the Public Act regarding a county retailer's occupation tax for public facilities. It's front to back. You guys are welcome to take a couple of those, pass them around. This just has general information on it regarding the tax. You've probably seen that, maybe even read it before. But that's good information to have. I'm going to start with this here, and let me be very clear. I am not an expert when it comes to the Department of Revenue. All right, I'm not a sales tax expert. I don't work for the Department of Revenue. So regarding, is this individual item going to be taxed? Is that individual item going to be taxed? I won't have all the answers for that particular situation. But one thing I do want to pass out is we can reasonably guesstimate what we think a 1% county sales tax would generate in revenue annually, based on historical data. And so what I want to pass out now is just one little document that we've put together here. This is not gospel by all means. This is simply just a hypothetical situation based on historical data to reasonably project what a 1% sales tax may generate here in the county. Okay, so I'm going to pass this out here. Once again, if you don't mind maybe taking a couple, passing it around. Should be enough for everybody, anybody that wants one. There's a couple. And then let me explain as we go through this. You already receive a countywide sales tax monthly that is 0.25%, right? If I'm not mistaken, you already received that. I know you do because I've gone to the Department of Revenue's website and I've printed off the last several years of what you've received for a countywide sales tax of 0.25%. Good news is this gives us an idea as to what an additional tax would generate. Bad news is this Massac County CST at 0.25% taxes everything. And this tax that you're putting on the ballot does not tax everything. So we have to be clear about that. So for example, this tax here, that's that top line, includes licensed and titled vehicles. The facilities tax that's on the ballot does not include licensed and titled vehicles. So we have to remove a percentage of that number to allow for estimated tax on licensed and titled vehicles. So historically, we can look back in 13, 14, 15, and 16. These are fiscal years. These are running, I think, July 1 to June 30. Reported and dispersed from the Department of Revenue. All this information came right from the Department of Revenue's website. We didn't make this up. All we've made up is the estimated vehicle tax at 0.25%, right? That's just a guesstimate. So, historically, you can see 0.25% going back 13, 14, 15, 16 has generated those dollars. All right, 180, 287, 352, 288. If we allow for an allowance of 25% for licensed and titled vehicles, it reduces that to those following figures. 216,000, 264, 215, 135, reading from left to right. Maybe that 25% is too high, maybe that 25% is too low. I don't know. That's part of what the feasibility analyst will go through. All right, when they're brought in at the appropriate time, they'll determine exactly what it is.
How many cars on average are sold for how many dollars?
Right. Those are things they will look at. That is exactly correct. That is what they will look at. When we've done these type of projections before, we've seen anywhere 17, 18%, upwards of 25, 26%. So we figured we would just use 25%. So those are 0.25% numbers. So if you take the line that says less vehicle tax, the 216,411, and you multiply that by 4, that's what 1% would be. That's 865,000. Again, this is just a simple projection. So if you look back the last 4 years, the estimated county sales tax at 1%, 865, $1,863,540. By the way, the state of Illinois will keep money out of that for their services and administrative duties, and it's 2%. So unfortunately, they're going to shave 2% right off the top to handle that process, the payment process and managing or handling your money. So we do back out a 2% fee for the state of Illinois, for the Department of Revenue. So if there's any line here that you want to circle or that you want to focus on, it's the one that says less state fee. That's really the net projection. 848, 1,036, 846, 529, 847. So you could reasonably expect, again, these are not guaranteed numbers, but you can reasonably expect based on historical data, it is very possible that you'll see anywhere or those potential numbers. Now, I don't know here what happened between 13 and 14, where it went from 530 up to 846. Why it went from 846 to $1 million and then down to 848, I can't answer that question for you. Feasibility analysts may be able to say, well, here's what happened during that time, because they will look back at historical data and so forth. So, using the 2016 values, if if you had received 848,000 in revenue, then we just figured 80%, right? How much of that revenue stream do you want to use as a debt service payment? So we take 80% of that number, and that's where we get with 678. In other words, $24,000 a month. So now that we have that, what you do then is, and again, this is something similar that what a feasibility report will show is it will show historical data, but then it's also going to show, looking out the windshield, estimated in 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and so forth. All right, I'm not going to do that. I'm not a feasibility analyst. That's what they will do. I'll just look out of the rearview mirror, see what's been done historically that we can actually prove, have a reasonable guesstimate on vehicle tax, back that out, and give us some ballpark figure that I think is enough to be dangerous for planning purposes, and that's what we have here. Guys, any questions on that? Pretty self-explanatory there. Okay, now here is what we had passed out and discussed. I put today's date on it, but this is the same document that we had passed out and discussed in November. That is a summary table of various bond issue amounts, loan amounts, over various lengths of time at hypothetical interest rates. If there's anything not to get hung up on here, it's the interest rate, because it's simply a hypothetical. You may not be borrowing money for 6 months, 8 months. So we wanted to use a hypothetical scenario here. These are estimates, these are not quotes, this is just simple, trying to give you an idea. If you borrowed $5 million, all right, if you borrowed $5 million, and you wanted to pay it off over 15 years, as an example, okay, just take the $5 million, the 15-year maturity, and it intersects there. Your estimated average annual principal and interest payment, based on a hypothetical rate of 4%, is $473,000. Everybody follow that? As mentioned, depending on the bond issue that we move forward with, which would most likely be an alternate revenue bond, again, we can get into those details down the road, you would be required to have a 25% coverage. So we have to show that, okay, if your annual payment's $473,000, right, that's the dollar out example I used earlier, we got to make sure that you have enough revenue coming in to support the payment dollar for dollar plus a 25% cushion. So we'd have to show, or hope, that the feasibility report shows that you have at least $591,732 coming in. Okay, that is not what your payment is. That's just what we have to have as a projected revenue stream coming in to meet your principal and interest payment dollar for dollar plus a 25% cushion. Why a 25% cushion? Because we know revenues go up and down. It's sales tax, right? You can go back to this and look at it's not identical 1 month to the next. If you wanted to be more aggressive and pay it off in 10 years, well, you can see the math there, $657,000, but in order to meet the coverage requirement, we've got to show that there's 821 coming in. So this is where we start getting into the, all right, what's the direction that, how much do we want to borrow, how long do we want to take to pay it off, and so forth. Now, we won't know exactly where the final rates will shake out to be until we actually go to market and issue the bonds. You're not talking about doing anything, obviously, until well after the election and the tax is imposed. So you're not looking to potentially borrow any money for many, many, many months. Who knows what the rate market will be at that time. But again, this shows just a hypothetical scenario over various lengths of time and lengths of maturity, or various dollar amounts over various lengths of time. On something like a 15-year financing, if someone were to say, Kevin, should we do 10 years, should we do 15 years? Look, we know we want to do $5 million. Should we do 10 years or 15 years? Obviously, the 15-year is a lower annual payment, right? It's a lower annual payment, but you end up paying more in interest over the life of the bond, of the financing. Right? No different than if I finance a house over 30 years versus 15 years. Same concept. Conceptually, it's the same thing.
Almost $750,000.
Right. Sure. Right. Yep. At this example, at this scenario. Again, those are decisions that you guys will have to make. Those are the what I call the local decisions. I can't tell somebody, hey, you need to do this or you need to do that. We're just gonna throw out some options there, talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, regarding those options, and try to help you make the best decision based on the facts and circumstances as we know them at the time. If someone said 10 to 15 years, what I can tell you is that on something like a 15-year, there will be an option to pay that off early. So you could conceivably potentially pay it off in 10 years, right? So you have to decide, all right, do we want to lock ourselves into a higher payment at 10 years or give ourselves flexibility of 15 years, which is a lower payment, and then set money aside each year out of that 1% sales tax? Because in the event that you're collecting $700,000 per year and your bond payment's only $473,000, well, what do you do with the difference? You set it aside, right?
I say put it in principal.
Or set it aside. And
How, these are annual payments, correct?
that is correct. Right.
How often can we pay principal?
You're going to have to, principal's paid once a year. Principal's paid once a year. And that's typical with 99.9% of the bonds issued in the country. So again, those are decisions that you guys will end up having, or conversations you'll end up having as this potentially progresses. Obviously, we won't have many of these conversations if it doesn't pass in November, but in the event that it does, these are some of the future decisions that you'll have to look at. Maybe $5 million is not the right number. Maybe it's $4 million. Maybe it's 4.5. We just figured we'd show 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 15, 20. Now, obviously, 20 years, we're not going to be able to do that because the question, I think, on the ballot has a 15-year sunset provision. So you could probably nix the 20-year column in general. Because if there's no tax after year 15, then obviously we're not going to be able to finance anything beyond that because there's no revenue stream coming in to make that payment.
The way I understand it, if we have excess funds each year, it cannot be applied towards principal. We gotta wait to that
You gotta wait till the call date.
call date.
Yep.
When that money builds up enough, let's say it's,
5 years in,
yeah,
right?
let's say it's $2 million left.
Yep.
We have that
So you,
fund, we can pay it all off.
Right.
then.
Right.
You can't pay extra each year.
okay.
Right, yeah, sorry if I didn't mean to confuse you on that. Yeah, it's not like a car loan or a house loan where I can pay an extra $100 per month towards principal. And again, this is bond issue. I mean, this is the bond industry. The way the bond industry is there is a predetermined date at the time that you approve the financing that says on or after this date in the future, it's called a call feature, C-A-L-L, call feature. On or after a particular date that's agreed upon at the time that we put the financing together, any extra dollars that you have setting aside, you can take that and you can pay off a lump sum of the loan that remains. So essentially what you're doing
You
is
can pay off the whole loan, but not a portion of the principal
well,
after the call date.
after the call date, if you've got enough money in cash to pay off the whole loan, you can. You can pay off what
That's
what
what I'm
remains.
getting at.
Yep.
You can,
Yep.
that's the only option, or you can pay principal only
Well, you can pay principal only. Yeah.
after the call.
Right.
date.
Sure.
Okay.
Right. You can pay a portion. You can pay all of it. It's whatever makes sense at the time. And obviously, let's just use this number as an example. If you've been able to set aside $1 million, and you've got $1 million sitting in a bank account, sitting in escrow somewhere to be used for reduction of loan principal on or after that date, well, then you can take all of it, a portion of it, and you can pay off a good chunk of what remains, which then, of course, reduces your interest output. Right.
Typically, if on a 15-year note, what would that call date be?
Typically, the call date would probably be 7 to 8 years into it. Now, that doesn't mean we couldn't put a 3 or a 4 or a 5 year in it. We can put in at whatever we want. But understand that if you deviate from what's typical across the country, it may limit the attractiveness to somebody wanting to purchase it. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, they wanna stick it to you so they get their interest.
Sure, right, absolutely, right, absolutely. It's like, hey, normally if every other bond issue in the country has a 7 or 8 year call feature, and you want a 4 or a 5, why would I buy yours at 4 or 5 when I can get this one that's locked me into 7 or 8? And so
Well-
they may buy 4 or 5, but they're going to say, well, we'll do it, but it might cost you a little bit more.
Or, interest rates are dirt cheap.
Or interest rates are cheap.
Maybe there is a company out there that thinks interest gonna be higher, and they
Right.
want their
So we
principal back to rebond
It
in 5
used
years.
to be 10 years. It used to be a 10-year call feature years ago. And now as rates have continued to plummet, it's shifting, that curve is
Yeah,
shifting
they
down to
They don't mind
7
having,
years.
they don't mind
Right.
having their money sooner.
Right, Because if I'm gonna have a big dollar amount dumped in my lap in 5 or 6 years, I can take that and potentially reinvest it at that time in something higher. Again, hypothetical. So for that reason, sometimes folks will focus on the longer term simply because it's a more manageable payment. Yeah, you pay more in interest, but if the goal can be to pay it off early, it can end up potentially being advantageous or maybe a wash over a 10 year, where you're locked into a slightly higher payment. What questions so far? I know that's a lot.
Pretty simple.
Pretty simple. That's good.
Questions, Gerald?
Yeah. What if we borrowed $3 million and that wasn't enough? Can we go back and borrow another million?
Yep.
Or whatever?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, so long as A plus B, right? 3 million, we'll call that loan A.
Okay.
We'll call 3 million loan B, as long as A plus B doesn't exceed what the feasibility report says we can afford annually in an annual payment.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That's all. I
Yep,
need.
yep.
Good.
Good question. Essentially, you can borrow up to whatever that feasibility report says you can
Yeah.
afford.
I understand.
Which is why we can't do it. Legally, we can't do it because we can skew the numbers to show whatever we want. That's why you have to have an independent third-party group come in that's completely detached from us and from the county. So when we get to that point, we'll try to find 2 or 3 different groups that do this, get bids from them, find out what they're going to charge, and then bring that back to you and let you guys decide, hey, you know, which one do we want to utilize. There's not a lot of folks that do it.
Any other questions?
No, I got it.
We've talked about it.
I'm good.
Right, yeah, right. We've talked about it at some length. Patrick, any questions? Okay, from your end, okay.
Okay.
Didn't confuse everybody?
Thank you for your time.
Hopefully I haven't confused everybody.
So, Kevin, where are you from?
Where am I from? Bloomington. Bloomington, right.
280 miles.
It's, yeah. I came in last night. Allowed me to hit the ground running first thing this morning. Appreciate you guys getting me on early. That allows me the opportunity to push northbound and get home at a reasonable time.
Should be home by 2.
And don't tell my wife that. Right?
Yeah, I know.
That's right, exactly, yeah, exactly. No, I'm only teasing. Yeah, we've got a lot of rain up our way, so it might be a bit too wet to mow. Okay, guys, if you have any questions, you got my contact info. Oh, you know what, maybe you don't. Here, let me pass out some cards here. That way you guys at least, Jason, you've got my contact info, right? But you guys are welcome to call me anytime. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good day.
Appreciate
Okay,
it.
you too, no problem, thanks. See you guys.
Dana, come tell us about a couple $100,000 you got.
Jeremy said he's talking to the adjuster right now, so we should have got that about a month ago.
It's not good things.
Yeah, ain't good news.
20,000 this morning. There you go, Gerald.
Today's payroll, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's after payroll, so we're good.
Well, I wouldn't go
I
that
gotta
far.
forget you today.
Might be
Your
after
haircut's a
payroll,
little
but still
bit.
ain't doing it.
You pass my number when you get. Judy did run a report this morning, from collection to real estate, she could disperse 90,000. If we have to have it. And did you find your list this morning?
Yes, I mean, we do get it, we need to knock out those bills,
Well, that's what we wanted to ask.
which, I mean,
I didn't put your third payroll on there.
a lot of it is, we just have that extra building we're trying to maintain. Larry Grace, you know, with the.
Larry Rice, I kinda put his name next to a few things so we can see what we didn't used to have to pay for that we do now. Looks like some of the court-appointed attorneys,
Yeah,
it's
I know.
really,
It's
I
over,
don't think it's a big thing about the bills, it's just they all kinda came due at the same time is what the problem
I think we
is,
had
so.
over $20,000.
Court-appointed attorneys.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's one bill for 12,007.
Sounds to me like you need to make a disbursement, don't you? Pay some bills.
Well, I mean, we're gonna have to, we're just gonna have to juggle it, I guess. I don't think we have a whole lot of fees left coming in to cover that third payroll, so. I mean, we can pay it all in bills, and if payroll goes, do you borrow it? What are we gonna do?
Take a week or two off, see what happens,
Dana, did you check on that sales tax for the,
I haven't had a chance to yet this morning, but I sure will.
and how much it is?
When are we getting them?
I mean, just
You all
by
keep
this,
talking about this third payroll, what's that mean?
that means
Means that
a
it
month that
falls-
we normally,
Yeah.
you know, make both payrolls.
I know what it
this-
means.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say. Other than that,
It's all right for an employer to get a Christmas present once a year, you know. Give the people a break.
Well, not all of us don't need the money like we do.
had yours would go our way.
That's right.
Yeah, I hear you. You had my debt, I'd throw yours away.
Is there anything else?
I think that's about it.
All right.
Got me in the table here. Lori's here to save the day. She told us she had money, right?
Bunch of it.
Last I heard, like 400 some odd thousand she was sitting on down there.
Yep.
I think we normally just scribble our names on that page. That'll work for you. I'm glad you're here. Make sure you get all these papers back down there.
I wasn't even on the agenda either, just okay.
I can't believe Lynn didn't squeeze you in there, cause she made a comment she was going to, so I did.
You gotta
I
admit,
just figured-
that's pretty gutsy to walk in front of the sheriff and sit in front of him like that's not even on the agenda.
Sorry.
All right.
You're pretty laid back, huh? You wanna look at Lori's paperwork here, or?
Lori, have you got me somebody I could use out there on the farm?
Well, fine. Let's see. I'll probably give them a ride.
Have to give them a ride. And feed them.
Well, might, I don't know. Depends on how long you keep them, I guess.
So,
Jason, pass that over there, did you notice that? Read that, invoice? Back page of it.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Have we ever got one like that before?
We have been a while. Long time.
Got everything back or not?
I think Jason's got it.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'll probably pass it back.
Yes, she is trying.
You got ringers trying to take it down for a cash aid.
Must be what I'm texting about.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
thank you, Lori.
You guys in a hurry to get up and rain and work.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I'm in a hurry. Always, huh? Guys, I'd ask Joe to look over his, revenues coming in, some history of them, and trying to get some idea of projections in the future of what we gotta do to get him some more revenue out there at the highway department. Patrick's looked into it some as far as what could be put on as a fuel tax, a sales tax, this tax, or that tax. So Joe's put some numbers together as far as how his revenues have been out there, the revenues over the last 10 years. He wants to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. I basically went through and wrote some notes down from 2006 to 2015 as far as what we've been getting, our main sources of revenue for our everyday budget is from taxes, and it's from motor fuel tax allotments. And, there's several individual taxes and individual motor fuel tax items that I've added together, but I've lumped them basically in those two categories, because, for instance, as far as regular property taxes, we get a county highway tax, we get a highway bridge tax, we get a unit road tax, and we get a unit bridge tax. I just added all them together. And with motor fuel tax, we get something called assessed compensation, which is a program through IDOT, and then there's county motor fuel tax allotments and township motor fuel tax allotments, so I lumped all that together. I've got a lot more detailed information than what I'm going to tell you today, just because I don't know what you would want to hear or what you would want to see, but in a nutshell, if you add all of our revenue together, it's gone down about 3.4% over the last 10 years as a total picture.
Per year or over the 10 years?
Over the 10 years. Per year, the trend is about, it's nothing's exact, but the trend line for total revenue, we're losing about 0.5% of revenue every year. Obviously, it's not exact. I mean, it goes up and down. It's scattered, but in a nutshell, motor fuel tax allotments are going down, and property tax slightly goes up, every year, because the way that the property is assessed, the value of property supposedly goes up every year, so our percentage of what we get every year goes up slightly. So, if you want to hear those individual numbers, I mean, the trend is the motor fuel tax is going down about 2% a year. The taxes that we collect are going up about 1.3% per year. So, in a nutshell, when you take that all into account and put it together, it's a negative overall, a negative 0.5% per year. So, just to give you a hard number, in 2006, our total revenue was about 1.37 million. In 2015, our total revenue was about 1.32 million. So that just kind of gives you a picture of what's going on. I mean, so it follows that our budget from year to year has to follow our revenue. We can't budget more than what we get. So basically, in the last 10 years, our actual budget has gone down. Our actual capability to spend is going down. I wrote down some other interesting numbers that, as you know, everything gets more expensive every year. I mean, as far as some of the major expenses, like, for instance, our salaries over the last 10 years have increased a total of like 23%. The insurance that we pay has increased a total of like 48%. Equipment maintenance has increased a total of about 46%. Utilities have increased a total of about 79%. So everything is getting more expensive, and we get less money, and we have less to do with it, because everything is more expensive to buy. And the big kicker is, because all those other things that we just mentioned have gone up that much, we've spent, between now and 2006, we spend about 24% less on buying materials, because we had to make up the number somewhere. And that's where it's cut out. So that means, as far as just the raw number is concerned, we're spending about 24% less on materials than we did 10 years ago, and that doesn't even take into account that materials cost a lot more now than they did 10 years ago. So the capability of buying rock, buying oil, buying pipe is way less than 24%.
So instead of buying 76%, we're probably buying about 55%.
Or less, yeah. So that just gives a total, I mean, it's doom and gloom just like everything else. I mean, I don't have any good information to say about that because it keeps going down and expenses keep going up. You know, and that's as far as if you wanted to hear anything more specific or differently or put together in a formal way, I'd be glad to do it. I just tried to put together some information that Jeff asked me to put together, and that's what I'm trying to do as well.
Where is it you're going with this, Jeff? I don't
Well,
understand.
I would like to give the voters an opportunity eventually to decide whether they would like to put more funding towards the highway department.
How would they do that?
They would do that on a referendum, just like the sales tax. I wanted to do it this time because if we're gonna give the voters a choice, I wanna give the voters some choices.
You know, what would the referendum say?
Patrick had worked on that, but right now the referendum won't say anything because there is a long-term plan that's not in effect that needs to be put to the public. The plan has to be produced and made public.
Is it a tax at the gas pump, or what are you asking?
It's different kinds of taxes.
And there's a lot of different ways. I mean, you could do it through property taxes, you could do it through sales tax.
I would rather do it through sales tax personally. So that way, what my goal was to get it on the same ballot so that voters would have a choice, some choices. So as a general rule, very few of the common citizen does not come and use the courthouse, but very little. As a general rule, the common citizen uses the county highway department daily. So I would like for them to have a choice of who their funds go to.
I thought you sat here repeatedly and said, I'm not for tax, not for no additional tax.
Well,
That's one of your staples that you can,
This
as
is-
you say.
This is
and
true,
you
but
constantly say,
now we already have a tax option on the ballot, so I would like to have the voters to have their options.
don't you think the court system's important?
Absolutely.
So much, are you saying that, we try to explain to me or to the people that you don't support the court system, but you wanna put a tax on
Did I ever say that I don't support the court system?
the tax? Do you support the sales tax? You voted no for it.
No, in the current state, I do not.
What state would you support?
Possibly if we get the budget to where there's maintenance money in it. Because I think that we need to check that bill out right there.
Well, you're the chairman, right?
At this moment, yes,
You did the budget, you worked with us all on it.
correct. And I
Why
try,
didn't we get that accomplished?
because it takes more than one person to, we, if one person wants to put money in a certain line item, and the two other commissioners don't, that's it.
I don't remember us ever discussing that you felt hard about that or having any, discussion on
Well,
it.
that's fair enough, I can't help what you recollect or what you don't.
Gerald, do you remember?
In the future, I think about 3 weeks ago or so that you and I talked, and well, whatever day that referendum passed, was it 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, that in the future that perhaps you would agree to allocate more money to maintenance.
I would.
Good.
What did you ask me for?
Well, I mean, I'm just sitting here shocked that we're asking for another tax that Jeff has never supported a tax issue with the
I'm
county
supporting
court,
an option.
with the court system, and now we're discussing, that you support the highway department adding a tax to the residents.
I'm supporting an option. Because they already have one option, I would like for, it's not gonna be on this ballot anyhow, so you don't need to be too shook up.
It's not that I'm shook up, I'm just having a debate. I mean, if you sat here for years and said, I do not support any extra tax, and now you're sitting here saying today that you do support a tax.
I said I support the option.
I mean, you're the one who brought it up.
Correct.
I'm done, I'm just reporting to you what our revenue has been, that's what it is, I mean, it's steadily going down.
You know, Joe, I was thinking, you use the creek gravel some, I think you've been in there lately, haven't you? In the creek. Is there any, roads close to the creek that are white rock that, could have a layer of that creek gravel on it that would suffice for right now? You know, it's not very dusty.
No, I mean,
I don't think it holds up as good as white.
there's a lot to play in putting down gravel. I mean, yeah, when you put loose, I mean, we don't use creek gravel just to surface road. I mean, I'll just put that out there right now, because you're right, it doesn't, it's loose, there's nothing to bind it together. If you
Right.
surface a road with it, it would just roll off the sides into the
Oh,
ditch.
no, you mean, oil and chip?
No, I'm talking about
Just
creek
put-
gravel,
Just putting
on a
it
gravel
down?
road, yeah.
We'll put it down to repair bad areas, but
Yeah.
we're not gonna put it down to surface a road, you know, as far
As
as
a
any
layer of
kind
gravel.
of length. Because what you're saying is exactly right,
It don't
it
stick.
won't bind
No,
together,
it
and it
won't.
won't
No, it
stick
won't.
together. So, I mean, that's what white rock does, because there's fines in it, there's force in it. When you compact it, it holds together. I mean, we use whatever means we have available to get material to, as cheap as we can, to keep the roads put together. I mean, I know there are probably a lot of people out in the county that don't think we do a very good job, but
They need to cross the county line.
but at the same time, I mean, we do the best we can to keep it manageable.
I
mean,
understand.
and,
Well, now.
I know that next year, you know, we've, I'm not gonna say neglected, but we haven't done a lot of putting down gravel on too many roads here in the last, I don't know how many years. I plan on trying to cut back a little bit more even on oil and chip roads and start, putting some more attention to gravel roads because of that fact.
Yeah.
I mean, there are still people that live out there on gravel roads, and, you know, I think it deserves some attention as well.
True. Well, what about inch and a half rock versus CA6?
Yeah, I mean, there's all those options. I mean, we got,
I mean, I think it stay longer. That's probably not.
you know, it could, it's more expensive to buy it, but, yeah.
It is higher?
Yeah, it's about, I don't know the exact number, I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 a ton more for the inch and a half, it's because it doesn't have the dust in it. I mean, I don't know why it's more expensive, it just is.
But you could haul more below. Because it's tonnage, right?
It spreads further.
Yeah. One avenue. And I think it would last longer.
If it packs, it does. Have you all noticed it, does it roll,
Well,
or do you always blade it in, or
no, and we're gonna, I mean, we haven't really, again,
really not hauling
used
much?
it as far as servicing any roads. I mean, the only thing we've done in the last several years since I've been here as far as actually surfacing sections of road is pit gravel. That works great. You can find somebody that will sell you pit gravel, because that has some clay in it, it has some fines in it, when you roll it in, it's usually there. But you can't actually even grade it for, you know, several months, because if you do, you'll mess it up, you know. But what we can try the other rock, maybe.
Well, now I'll tell you what, if a person was gonna build a road and, wanted to get by cheap, that makes a good base, that creek gravel. If you can get it in the ground, why, you know, it don't move around like you're talking. But when you put it on top of a hard road, yes, you know, it does. Just a thought, you know, on something that maybe just had 2 or 3 houses and it was close, you know, didn't get a whole lot of wear.
guys out doing today?
Well,
Regular things.
mowing, grading,
Seen a grader out yesterday.
fixing washouts.
You know, putting those county signs out yet?
We put them all out.
They did your old time, okay.
Yeah, I
Is
was
this material for you guys, I guess, there's some signs, some stuff ordered, I didn't know.
Well, that's for them to make the signs, but
The material? Yeah, but y'all order some more stuff, more signs?
Abby and them would have, right?
yeah, Abby and Marshall.
Okay.
No, I have not, I guess I don't know where we're going with doing all this in the future. If we're just putting them up, whatever you give us. That's all
Jeff
we've
had
done.
mentioned, you know, about trying to help out
Yeah.
and put that fee that he was given before into your all's coffers.
Right, and I
That's
gave
fine.
Jeff a letter, about how many signs we put up last month. We
I
put
think
all the
we-
ones up that you give us last.
Okay.
We had to buy some stuff.
We filled out a claims form for
Some
that.
materials.
Yeah.
You know, those little clips
Yeah.
and brackets that you put,
You
together.
didn't get it, okay. Yeah, I need to.
I mean, we just bought several of them just so we can have some in stock, because,
He never did drop any off. Okay. Alright.
I noticed Gurley Road and Beavers Road, I believe. No, Gurley Road and Massac Creek Road, the sign is sitting on the ground beside the road name sign is sitting there on the ground beside the stop sign. Out there, and want to throw it in the back of your truck or something.
That's what I was gonna ask. I mean, is somebody else still gonna be in charge of
The list.
the list
Yeah.
of where we're gonna go with it?
I-
Jason
I guess I
gives
could
you a
relinquish
list.
that. I do not know where you
He gets every phone call there.
Yeah,
are.
I mean,
How do you,
honestly,
how
I
do
don't
you
either,
get that
because
list?
I try to,
I could drive out through the county, I
guys
could
made
find
one.
100 spots where it did the
Didn't they?
sign,
yeah.
but nobody's asked for one. Nobody
Maybe a
catch
year or
it.
two.
I don't know.
Yeah, you just pay
I
that
just take
fine.
a list,
Yeah.
try to hand it to Abby, and when people call me, I just write it down.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if people call me, I'll do the same. I just don't know who.
Are you just giving it to Abby and them, or do you know?
In the
Nobody
past, I
knows.
just gave it to you.
Well, what's wrong
I
with this
haven't
one here?
gotten any calls lately.
I'll read the
The
back,
price?
read the back page.
We'll try to figure out a way to streamline it, or I'm not including that group.
You don't want me included no more, huh?
Not really,
I don't blame you.
yeah.
Positive?
We've had it, we also had, all the new road signs that we have, not the names, but the other
Yeah.
signs that we put up. We've had quite a bit of vandalism here in the last several months on,
Yeah.
I mean, as far as painting on them and everything else.
That's kinda scary, isn't it?
Summertime, I guess.
Yep, it is. It's positive.
Aggravating, to say the least. I mean, you put a brand new sign up with a brand new pole, and some of them get stolen, some of them get painted, some of them get bent, where you can't use them anymore. I mean, I don't know what you can do about it, though. I mean, you catch somebody red-handed, I mean, that's
About all you can do.
Get all those little GPSs on them, I guess. Follow 'em right to their
game
house.
cameras everywhere. I'm done. That's all I need.
That's all I got.
Okay.
You got all your bills back?
I think I do. If I miss one, I'll come back.
All right, we'll see you. You need us back or?
I do, but I'll let Tim go ahead. Sure. Yes. All right, you just move it from one line item to another. Yeah, that's what I do. This is not a salary line item.
Every year I budget money in the deputy side and the jailer side, put people in school for one person. This year I'm having to send 2 jailers to the academy. I think $349 is what I'm short, so I'm transferring $500 from the uniform line item at the jail to the training line item at the jail.
rifles?
Yep.
Okay. Do we need to, the only thing odd about, is that, it was the line item. I just wanna make sure that's where you wanted it, or,
Was it a bill?
I'm supposed to go see him today.
I know Sandy separated those into 3 different line items, take the money out.
I thought it was. Did we not just stick that back in the, where, why the hell mail that? Ted, to be blunt, I don't know what I did with that claims form. There was two or three claims forms.
3.
I think Chrissy put it.
We didn't sign them, did we? I was gonna make sure that that's the funds you wanted it out of first. Page one.
Second page. 2, 8, and 4.
You want me to walk over and see if I can find them? Or do you know what funds they come out of, or?
Yeah,
Just
sending
where-
that one over.
Okay. Would that money have been better off out of a different fund, or what's your thoughts?
So there wasn't enough out of one fund, so that's.
Well, I was wondering if we needed to do one of these, that's, okay.
There should be enough money in each fund to cover those 3 items.
But does that purchase fit the fund?
Yeah.
Training, and okay to buy your rifles through training?
And I think the equipment, some other stuff come out of one line item, the guns come out of another
There
line.
was it rifles and scopes and something else?
Ammunition, cases to put in there.
I guess as long as you're happy, I'm happy. I was just curious about the funds, about doing one thing. I didn't know if that would look better for you coming out of, equipment. Cause I'm not sure any of them, was one of them coming out of the equipment fund?
Or I can't remember, it's equipment, training, and what the other one was.
I would've thought they ended up back in there. Anyhow. Guess as long as you're happy, don't matter.
That should be enough to cover that.
Patrick, do we need a motion to do these or what? You just got one of them. Did you all hear Ted? People wanting to transfer $500 out of one line item to another?
Yeah,
I'll make that motion.
Gonna second that, Gerald?
yeah.
Motion second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. You need to copy that too.
Well, when it's done, yeah.
I asked Chrissy to bring those bills back over.
Oh, thank you. How long does it take them to get you stuff like that when you order?
You already got it.
You got good credit with them people then, don't you?
What size rifles are they?
223.
What do you do with your old ones?
Never had one. Some state police have had them, the city police have had them for years, and I just kind of put it off. And that officer got shot in Carbondale, I thought, well, put it off too long. So,
It's just something to reach out there a little further if you're under attack and outgunned, you mean?
everybody else has got them. So, and it's
Kinda hard to hit
Suspect's got a
somebody
rifle.
with a pistol when they're shooting from 300-400 yards.
Everybody's got, hope we never have to use it, but
Where they keep those in their car, in their trunk, or?
Have y'all got your, is there some sort of organization in your trunks? I mean, compartments, or what do you got in the police trunk, or is it just all
bad part
hodgepodge in
is
there?
the newer cars are getting smaller and smaller,
what I'm
they're having to cram more stuff into
The
it.
trunk gotta be full.
Between that and spike strips and shotguns, bags to keep for, first aid supplies, and ammunition, paper. It's-
Makes your vehicle have a good gas mileage, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A couple thousand pounds.
Does, every
Ted.
car carry a spike strips?
Those, three they picked up in Kansas City, I believe, for shooting that officer in Carbondale. Did you ever hear a motive?
Yeah, they don't wanna release what it is, but
Okay. I figured it's coming that far, they had to be sometime.
that's, I mean, it's all drug related, but
Was it? Guess somebody didn't pay up.
$90,000. County cut checks a little faster, don't you?
yes, pay them off today.
It ain't looking too promising, but.
John said yesterday had 46 in jail, so.
Hey, what do you think y'all average on, somebody was asking me on your out-of-towners? Or out of the county.
At
I
least
told
10.
them anywhere from 8 to 14.
I'd say county average is about 10. We've got one in district in Johnson County, it's gonna do, I think, 30 days straight, or maybe, no, 60 days straight, at $30 a day. And that's what we like. We're on track to bring in $100,000 this year.
What'd you say, 30 days, 60 days, times what, 30?
$30 a day.
1,800 smackaroos. Did you get to work him too while he's there? Does he guy know how to paint, or?
They could if he's a trustee.
Nobody, flunky, you want somebody else up there doing it.
John, one electrician.
Certified, of course. I mean, no scab lasers over there. I could even use some tech guys sometimes. He can let them work on it. They might clear themselves.
School closed, she had to leave, her child was sick, and I can't find what she did with them. I would've thought, like you said, she would've put them back in here since they weren't signed.
I'll have Sandy dig her copy out and look at it. If it's something we might want to change,
It's just a matter of a minute.
there's not money there in pay right now anyway, so I may,
Yeah, I guess it don't make a heck of a lot difference, does it?
if it's something we want to change, I'll do it next week.
Okay,
Thank
be
you.
careful. Got to pay the freight both ways on these bars. What's up, Patrick?
To take a minute to recall several months back, Judge Williamson had sent a letter to Judge Jackson requesting that he provide whatever plan the county may have for bringing the courtroom up to the standards required by the Supreme Court of the state of Illinois. And my understanding is that this letter is in response to that letter, which was addressed to Judge Williamson, but was copied to both Jeff and I. My suggestion would be that as a board, the board come up with a plan to present to Judge Williamson and to get his essentially blessing on that plan, or at least bring it to his attention what the plan is here in the next several months before we get too close to the December deadline.
We would really need two plans.
Probably so. I think the plan should be done in the alternative. And I'm assuming what you mean by that, Jeff, is one if the referendum passes and one that fails.
Yes.
And my thought would be I'd be happy to sit down with, if you want the chairman to handle that task, whoever, and work up a plan then to present to the board for the board's approval. But I just wanted to bring this to your attention so we could get this moving forward before we get to
Before we run out of time.
Right, exactly.
How detailed does this have to be? Does it have to be a letter sent to?
I think we initially start with a letter. I believe that it would be wise, and I'd be happy to do it, to reach out to both judges and get their impression as to what they expect from us, the level of detail.
Are we basically just asking to use that one down there for a longer period of time?
Yes, but we have to let the
Document.
judges know, whatever we have to document, yes, but we have to let the judges know what our intentions are with that building or this building. Is our intention to renovate this building, which with referendum I believe it is. If that fails, then what is our plan? Is it to continue to work to renovating this building, or are we gonna attempt to renovate the other building to make it adequate?
What is it, the ceiling too low? Or is it not?
That is one issue. And that would be something we want to address with Judge Williamson, to see what,
Can he, let that go?
it's not up to him.
Oh, it's not.
It's up to him to apply for the variance or the waiver, but it's up to the state to decide whether it'll be granted or not.
I mean, we may need to prolong that courtroom for 2 or 3 years. Is that possible? With
Well-
his blessing?
That's why we need to have a plan. I can't say right now whether it would be possible or not, but I think that's where these
It's
letters.
out of all of our hands,
Right.
whether it's possible or not.
And I think that's what this letter is driving at, is that we can't really put a time period on anything until we know what plan we attempt to put in place.
That's true. It looks like, Patrick, to me, that there's situations up there that can never be solved in that basement.
Right. And then it would be up to whether the state would give us a waiver or not,
Okay.
if that were the ultimate option chosen.
Yeah.
When do you, and Jeff, plan to meet him, because we need to really get this done as soon as possible?
I'm actually supposed to go meet with Judge Jackson after this meeting, free or?
Yeah. So I can be free. And then, we will want to put something in letter form for the board to consider in a response.
Hope we might be able to get that done by next week then.
I would hope so.
That sound all right to you guys?
Yeah.
No court today, or got court later? Or you got Josh on it?
Josh is handling right now. We do have some report later. Appreciate your time.
Good luck with that.
Thank you, Patrick.
I'll holler at you or text you when I get here.
Thanks.
Republican chairman did not come in. He was supposed to have turned in his, all precinct committeemen, including number 14, was supposed to have turned in their precinct committeemen before the first board meeting in July. They did not do that.
We talked to our, legal counsel about that.
I have. I've got an appointment with the judge. We called him the same time we called Mary Ruth Brandon. She came right up. He did not come in. I've got to get these to the judge, so I need the chairman of the board to sign them.
Okay.
We'll worry about the chairman of the Republican Party later.
I wish you would've brought that up after I was here. He's already overlooked all this.
I have told him what's going on. I'm sure he didn't get that far.
So he probably run, well, that's Weber I'm running. This doesn't, does this have to have our board's approval?
Yes. If you see him out there, Gerald, would you holler at Patrick?
About what?
If you see Patrick,
Catch
would you holler?
Patrick, please.
You guys phone turned down.
Just needs, I guess a vote on it. I just need your opinion. She said there's some issues with the Republican committee chairman not signed off on it or something. We got time to run down here, you can cover it up. Okay, thank you. See you. What are you gonna explain to him in front of everybody?
I've already explained to him, he told me, put them out there.
Or signed, or
Yeah.
give
You
me
know,
a
I
little
told you about
advice.
Sammy not coming out and signing.
What is our deadline for getting this done?
He was supposed to have turned in the precinct committeemen, we're supposed to have turned them in by the first board meeting in July. So I have gave him ample time.
So these are, and everything with the Democratic
Those
parties.
are just, yeah, and we just filled in what we had from the last time, you know. Because we had nothing, except for the ones that turned them, that actually did turn them in.
Well, I apologize, I don't have the statute in front of me to
To
see
explain it.
when the date is. You know when the deadline is for?
I can go get that for you.
No wonder we can't pay our bills. I've been signing over here forever, it seems like. And I ain't nowhere near done.
Do something, aren't we?
So the issue is that the Republican Party has not been signed, is that the concern?
And there's several precinct committeemen that he picked up forms for to turn in their election judges that he never returned.
So in addition
So
to
you're
the-
short election judges, correct?
No, we just put on there what we've been using in the past.
So in addition to this document, there are forms that are submitted for each individual?
Yes, for each precinct committeeman, yes.
Has it ever occurred in the past where we've been short?
Yes.
What happens in that situation?
We usually call the chairman before the election and ask them to place somebody. If they cannot find anybody, then within 10 days of the election, we can go in and try to find somebody.
Okay.
That's pretty common for y'all to have to do
Yeah,
that again.
and we usually end up having to find people.
So as it relates to today's meeting, what is the,
Well, it's that I've got to get that signed by the chairman of the board in order to take it to the judge to get it approved.
right,
Meaning Judge Jackson.
Yes.
correct, it's supposed to be filed with the clerk, circuit clerk.
And I'm way behind on doing this. Because I've been waiting for him.
Thoughts? I hate to get any of us in trouble with election boards.
Right.
I mean,
It's just, the way the law is written is the chairman of the party is supposed to submit the names to you as the board, and then you approve what they submit, and then it goes to the court for approval, final approval. Now, submission can be just as simple as him signing this form saying, these are the names I submit.
so it sounds as if the proper channels, I mean, if, can we take a vote on that if the proper channels is not being?
Well, sorry to interrupt you, I didn't see where, it says that the chairman of the party central committee for the counties shall file a certified list and a supplemental list of persons available to serve as election judges. Now, if the party fails, to do that, there's nothing,
There's no provisions.
no. But there would be election judges, so there would be a process to follow. There is a time period given for the providing of that list. It's to be done in July. And because it's not been done in the time frame, I don't know if there's anything that prohibits us from acting on it. It may become an issue when the court reviews it. Have we had contact with the chairman of the
Yes.
party?
Yes.
And what has he said?
He wanted me to fax, he wanted his secretary to pick them up and bring them to him. And I said, no, they weren't leaving the office.
Meaning this document.
Yes. And he never gave me a time frame on when he was gonna come in and sign it. But we called, the same time we called Mary Ruth Brandon, and she got up here within hours.
What was that, the day?
Last week, I can't remember what exactly the date was, it was last
This is what
Tuesday
she
or
signed, right?
Wednesday.
Do you normally type that in, or does she normally sign?
We type that in.
take action on it and the court disapproves of our action, any clue what's up then?
Well, we would probably, most likely be back to where we would be if we didn't have any of these slots filled. We would be under that procedure for filling them as if there were vacancies.
That somewhat appears to be the way it is. I mean, if they're not certified, are they vacancies?
Right, I would, without doing any further research than what I've done just here, I would say that's accurate.
This takes a vote of our board, correct?
Right. When you spoke with the chairman, did he suggest there was any additional names that we placed on this? So it's just a matter of getting his signature.
Yeah.
Got any suggestion at all?
It seems pretty simple.
This is a new one on you?
Yeah, it is. I mean, just seems we need to, if we can get a signature, if not, I don't see there's anything in the law that prohibits you from approving it, with the understanding that it has to go to the court for final approval.
Okay. Well, we can have that in our minutes, that the motion is made and is approved, subject to the approval of the courts. Would that work?
Well, I think you're just one step in the process, and they take their step, no matter, the court takes its step no matter what you take. Because they can have a hearing, and there can be a challenge to the persons appointed as judges. Basically, they can hear objections to the appointments, and if there are no objections, it's to be confirmed. If there are objections, they're to hear the objections.
Should Juanita state in our minutes that she is trying to make contact with the chairman?
Whatever you want the minutes to reflect.
I think that'd be a good idea, don't you, Juanita?
Yep.
All that being said, do you guys wanna look at this, or you got a clue what we're?
Let's see it there real quick.
Aren't you glad I called you?
Oh, yeah. No, that's okay.
No, I called his cell phone. It says that my number's been blocked.
That's what it said.
I wouldn't take that as a bad thing.
Yeah.
Heard all he wants to hear.
I don't recollect ever having this problem in the past.
Jason, where's Keith got his office set up now?
He's, just trailer right here next to that one.
I don't know whether
They remodeled, or they put some insulation in it, bought a new central heating air unit for it.
him in the tin can, didn't they?
Yeah, put new windows in a little bit.
Fancied him up.
Well, just better utilities. Cause he lost that when City National bought that other location.
Yeah.
That's that spot.
He was at the fire department for a little while, wasn't he?
Yeah, kind of a transition thing, till they get this, trailer ready for him.
Haven't heard anything about that farm having financial difficulties.
Maybe not.
I heard that rumor, and I hope it's just rumor.
notice we're missing a lot of Democrats too.
Well, I haven't got that far, I don't guess.
It's just hard to find people, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is.
Big time.
I see Cuddles is on here.
Yeah, I talked to him today.
We
Well,
talked to what?
He'd be a judge on the Republican side and put a Democrat sign in his yard.
But he scoots it over far enough, you think it's the neighbors.
That's what I was thinking.
Cuddles is his brother, John. He's Republican.
Is Wilson Kirk a Democrat?
Which list is he on? I'm not sure.
Democrat.
Yeah, no, that's what he is.
It's interesting.
He's a good one too.
Is he?
Yes, he
Yeah,
is.
he's good.
A good judge or a good Democrat?
Good judge. Jody used to come down and help with getting election judges, and that girl was good. She could talk you into everything. Just too far. I miss her.
Will
She
miss?
Yeah, she wasn't, working here, she just filled in during the election.
Oh, I
and-
remember that, yeah.
Yeah. She was good. So saying goes, she could sell you a ketchup popsicle with you wearing white gloves.
Gift of gab runs in that family. What do you think, chief?
Yeah.
Look all right?
Thanks, all in order.
Can I assume that that's a motion to approve these? Should I assume
Well,
that?
no,
No?
I don't think we have to vote on it, do we?
Patrick said we did.
Well, I'll read this again.
Let's confer with our
I
legal
thought you
counsel,
said
shall
the
we?
judge would,
Well, the judge
He has
gets
to
it
sign it
next.
after we do,
you're right.
or we approve.
Okay.
You'll have to approve first.
What if we disapprove? It's not in the statute, so we don't have that option.
Well, if you disapprove, let me remind you, you were also one of the precinct committeemen that didn't turn in any judges.
I don't think I ever have I?
I don't know.
I don't think I have. I think John,
That would have been 2 years ago when John would have been in there.
John done it, I believe. Him or Lynn one told me they'd take care of it for me, they'd babysit me.
I do think you need to vote on it, approve it.
You think we do?
Yeah.
Jason, would you?
I'll make that motion.
Would you mind just a second?
I'll say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All in favor,
We're
aye?
good.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. You're in business, won't you?
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you.
Patrick, appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thanks, Patrick.
You're welcome. You need anything else, just,
Let's
you know,
make sure.
I'll walk very slowly.
With your phone turned on silent. What do you need this, Lori?
Well, I'm
Did I miss something?
here to give you some money
Oh, okay. You got the camera on?
so we can make this third pay.
Good deal.
Thank you, Lord.
Everybody was concerned.
I was sick to my stomach over it. It's getting bad in here. Worried about that money.
So Snow at school?
Hope he is. He's supposed to be. Yeah, he is. I drove by. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, he's taking Reese this year. He's at junior high, so. So Reese loves to get to school early, so we're gonna have a conflict. usually know is right when the bell rings, and Reese wants to be there as soon as the door is unlocked, so,
Isn't it strange how they can be so opposite?
yeah. So he's waking them up with it.
This is a social butterfly.
Yeah, he likes to get there and hang out with his friends before school starts. So,
There's one.
I see there'll be some issues probably throughout the year.
I bet, yeah.
I think I told Chastity, I said, I don't have to worry about him ever being tardy, Noah again, because, he'll make sure he's up and get him to school. He's been tardy a few times last year.
Tyler, I wouldn't even say how many times he was tardy. His senior year, he was pretty tardy.
Thank you.
Some days, like, I knew he had overslept, I don't even wake him up.
350,000 she brought up here.
Wake till he wakes up.
Oh, that's a dollar sign, I thought it was 3.
Just see how long he sleep.
35,000.
50,000.
Did
Sleep,
you though?
he sleeps till good 1 o'clock if I let him.
Oh, no,
He's done that before.
get a hang of that. I'd be mad.
I think he'd been up playing Xbox.
Oh, man. I'd take it away from him, yeah.
You didn't need a vote or anything on that, that's all.
Thank you,
Well,
Lori.
Yeah, yours was on.
And we'll see you next week with the same.
Thank you, Lord.
Okay, you're welcome.
What's up, Sheriff?
Found it. Bills you were talking about?
Oh.
Lynn
Involved
found
in two.
Yeah.
That's the only one I wanna change. The other
Oh,
one,
where
work
they-
I find.
You already got your thing typed up and everything.
Doing some trainings, a little work.
Taking some from training too.
It's coming out of the equipment maintenance going into,
I think it's going into equipment.
equipment maintenance.
Oh.
Never-ending call, isn't it?
Already signed it.
I thought I had a bunch in here, but I misplaced it. Let's see.
It's equipment maintenance equipment.
105512 is equipment maintenance. To equipment. You wanna look at that, or do you need to, for these rifles and such? Look all right to you?
From which account to which account, I need to put that in there.
From the empty front pocket to the empty back pocket.
What would you want to say you want to start on next year's, or the next month?
Anytime. No, matter of fact, I meant to bring that up.
When we do start that, I need to spend some time with you guys so we can go
Something up there.
there.
Guess we need to go ahead and sign it. We make a motion to go ahead.
You wanna make that that motion, Gerald, or?
Yeah.
Second that.
All in favor, aye?
Alright.
Opposed? Motion carries.
You did it earlier.
The names and everything?
Yeah.
Did it
I got it
earlier?
down. No, it didn't hurt anything. I got it down.
That's good, we got our two sides, so Jason can't bulldoze me out of it again.
He's rough on you, ain't he?
Yeah.
He don't.
He's wanting that chairman's job. He's
Step.
stepping on me to get it.
I felt sorry for Gerald, he bruised up there for a few
Yeah.
weeks. He's been so roughed up.
Well, Leland, we have them make a copy of this and leave it over there for you.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure,
Thank
later.
you.
One thing I forgot to ask Patrick about, but I ain't messing with him today.
Yeah, you see this bill, plasma tire, oil change, light bulb, and oil change. $151. Isn't that nice? Seems like we're getting one done for about $32.
On a car or?
Yeah, well,
It ain't one of them pickups, is it?
no, Crown Vic and a Tahoe.
Oh, two of them, or well.
Yeah,
Or
two oil changes and one headlight.
I don't know how much oil a Tahoe, my pickup's expensive, but it holds a bunch of oil.
Yeah, well, decent.
Yeah, of course, it's gonna hold extra oil, cause they let
2.5 gallons probably.
You know, they might be pushing them prices a little bit for the interest, knowing they ain't gonna get paid for 6 months.
No problem.
If.
There's one in it, Jason can sign.
I'm gonna go ahead and sign their rifle purchases now. Oh, you know what? No, I was gonna say we need to change the fund, but we don't, because he just put money in these funds, didn't he?
Yeah.
105512. Is that what he put it into?
He moved it from 12 to 97. But don't mean he moved it all.
That's true, but, we probably better make sure that they have enough.
No idea how
Surely
much
they-
is in there.
That may be a question for her, wouldn't it?
Sandy.
Yeah.
Of course, if there's not, they can always amend it later.
Again. Michelle, you didn't bring me no sausage biscuit today. Or nothing. I ain't had breakfast yet. I'm about to starve to death over here. You ever get that information or that guy email you?
Yeah.
For this building,
1,000 a week.
1,000 a week, yeah. Check on that.
Let me know how much is in there. Yeah, I think the plan is when, real estate taxes come in, we'll probably knock those bills out. For the disbursement, which will be the end of this month.
I'm just glad I'm not Chrissy.
So, hopefully if we get this, sales tax passed, if we get back in all one building, that's gonna reduce a lot of that
It
expense.
is.
So, let's wait and see. send anything out to the office holders about
Oh,
getting
you
their
know
budget
what?
turned in?
Yeah, since I keep forgetting to mention it when they're in here. Would you mind, what do you normally do, just send out a mass email,
No, we send out a letter.
a little letter?
What do you want them turned in by?
I don't know, 1st of August maybe?
Okay, well, we missed that. How about September?
Sounds good. I get, what, 15 days? Oh my. The sheriff's already working on his, it sounds like.